3,
Three,
two,
2, 1. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the
Hey.
Brigade podcast, episode 7. I'm your host.
Uncut edition.
Yeah, I'm your host, Ken. With me is Emily, and I'm sick today, and also it's a Friday, so we're recording the day late, and I'm also not feeling well. So I'm going to put up this podcast with no edits. So everything awkward that ever happens that gets cut out is going to be heard.
We like to live dangerously.
Yeah, and if it turns out that the fans hear the uncut version of the Sea Brigade and realize, oh my god, these people have no idea what they're doing, then we'll go back to editing it next week. But I don't know, you might be able to hear I'm like stuffy. I have a sore throat. All parts of my mouth are just hurting. There's a sore or like a hurting spot on my tongue. There's like a zit on my lip. It everything hurts. Opening my mouth hurts. Having a mouth as a human being right now and lungs, it all hurts. But in light of that, we really have our first piece of Broadchurch fan mail.
Nice.
Yeah, the letter comes from Tanisha, who says, "Hi guys, I'm not sure if this email is making it in time before your next episode, but I just want to say how happy I am to have found this podcast. I've been combing the iTunes podcast feed for a show solely dedicated to Broadchurch since season 1, and you're finally here, so thank you.
Aww.
I really enjoy listening to your guys' theories and dissections of the characters, and I'm also happy to know that there is somebody else out there who is irritated with Ollie. Yeah. He never just seems to realize the consequences of his actions, and it irks me. Also, OMG, did the episode really end like that? I live in America and have been keeping up with the show through not-so-legal means, so part of me refuses to believe they would cut to black right there before the verdict is spoken. I agree."
I actually, we'll talk about it later, but I was actually not, upset about that.
Mm-hmm. There were no end credits on the video I watched, so I really don't know if it was intended to be the ending. If so, what a dickish move for the writers to pull. Other than that, I've really been enjoying the season, especially with the addition of the Sandbrook case. However, I fear we won't see a resolution in the Sandbrook mystery until a third season, which does not make me happy because the suspense is killing me. Love the podcast, keep up the great work, and I can't wait for the next episode. Thanks, Tanisha.
Aww.
Yeah, it's funny that our first email also came from an American listener.
Cool.
Yeah. We've heard from Hungarians, and we've heard from Americans, but UK still not representing. No, they're the YouTube watchers. They're where the majority of the YouTube views are coming from, which is all right. But yeah, we're gonna get to everything Tanisha was talking about, the ending of the episode, and what we think is going to happen in episode 8, especially regarding the, what happens with Sandbrook.
Right.
Anyways, this episode starts with Claire telling Alec about how life's about realizing you're only half of a person, and that falling in love with that other half and losing them is just all part of life. And we don't really know where this conversation is happening at first, but we can tell they're in the same bed together.
Mm-hmm.
Then Alec wakes up, and Ellie fills him in on Claire fleeing the house, Claire burning the photo, and Pippa's pendant likely actually being Claire's pendant. And then Alec just says, she's panicking, that's good, I like it when they panic. And it's, he said the same thing around season 1 when
they burn the boat.
Yeah, he's like, oh, they panic, I love it. And it's great because he's the good guy, but I realized Alec Hardy is kind of chaotic lawful, where
Yes.
And then I don't know, Ellie might be lawful or neutral good. And then I don't know. And then Paul would be you're full on he's lawful good. But anyways, so Alec is talking about how Claire's panicking, that's a good thing. Ellie suggests that, what if Claire killed the girls and Lee was just covering for her? So I was thinking, like, okay, that theory's dead. Like, every time Ellie says a theory, I'm like, all right, and that's not what's going to happen next episode.
That's true.
So, yeah, I mean, also, Claire doesn't strike me as killing 2 girls evil, just a little bit unhinged, so.
Although, I don't know, unhinged can lead to a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. Tess recognizes the Gary Thorpe name as a man who RSVP'd to the wedding but didn't go.
Mm-hmm.
And they never talked to him because they didn't see any connections. And I don't know. I was trying to think of how they missed Gary Thorpe, but
yeah, it seems like a pretty huge oversight. Although I guess, because we've talked about this in past weeks, I guess since they were so desperate to wrap up this case that they just kind of went with the Lee Ashworth lead.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing is that if the Gillespies, the Gillespies never talked about Gary Thorpe, they kind of,
right.
Everybody lied about what was involved and what was relevant. So the police were not working with the full breadth of information.
Right. Now we're getting a lot of, drips and drabs that didn't come out the first time.
Yeah. So Ellie gives Claire, like, one more chance to talk. Like, the 8th time she's given her one more chance to talk.
I know.
And Claire says the pendant belonged to her grandmother, and she burned the photo because she's tired of being dragged into something she had nothing to do with. Which is something I underlined, because I stopped to give that some pause. Like, what if what happened to the girls is something she had nothing to do with, but covering it up and lying about what happened, that's what she had something to do with.
Well, I mean, it reminded me of Jack Marshall burning the photos of the Sea Brigade boys.
Yeah.
At the end of one of the episodes, which he had, which looks suspicious, but didn't have anything to do with Danny's death. However, I think that
this is
Claire,
a little bit different.
Yeah, I think it's extremely different. I think that Claire did not have nothing to do with the Sandbrook deaths.
Yeah. And what happens next is that Alec goes to Lee, and I think he's a really unconvincing liar here, but he's a really convincing crazy person, because he goes up to Lee. He's like, I just wanted to thank you. The case is reopening thanks to your leads, and it's going to be wrapped up real soon. But and that seemed really weak. But the stuff about him being reborn, I think that really makes Lee uneasy.
Yes.
He's like, what are you talking about? He's like,
yes.
I'm really properly angry, and for the first time in years, it's a beautiful feeling. I've got a new lease on life, and you're exhausted and sick of running. And I think this whole episode, that kind of trend continues where Lee is just a little bit intimidated by crazy Alec.
Yeah, which is kind of cool to see the tables flip, because I think Lee thought he had Alec, nailed down. He knew who he was, and now after this operation, he's just kind of like you said, this lawful crazy, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, chaotic good.
Chaotic, yeah.
And then Alec tells Lee about Claire's pregnancy and tells him to, ask about what happened to the baby. I mean, we get this flashback confirmation that the flashback scenes we were seeing of Alec and Claire in the same bed were Alec and Claire at an abortion clinic. Yeah,
and that's horribly sad, but in that moment I was like, yes, because that's one little victory that I have, because I have always been adamant that he and Claire did not sleep together sexually, and so I was like, all right, check one for Emily.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if you had any thoughts about that, because there are some people who are like, geez, Alec, you're really putting Claire in danger just time and time again. But also, if anything happened to Claire, it would be Lee's fault for being a violent person. Yeah. But I mean, what Alec is doing is stirring the pot and just letting.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in episode 2 or whatever, when they have the meeting, that's totally stirring the pot. She could have been in danger, but also, I don't think I can call a judgment on that so much, because again, we don't know what Claire has done.
Right. Yeah.
We don't know if Claire is the danger. I mean, obviously Lee is dangerous. We saw, the abuse this week, but I mean, we don't know if Claire is the murderous one.
Right. Yeah. Let's see. So what happens next is, before they go to court, Beth and Mark are talking.
Mm-hmm.
And Beth just clarifies for Mark that she didn't kick him out of the house or say that she doesn't need him. She just needs Mark to, start acting instead of being acted upon. He's like, oh, like, what if I can't change? What if I can't? He's just like so whiny. And he's just, and Beth is just like, Mark, life isn't something that happens to you. Life is something that you do. Like, I don't know, start doing something. It's just very, I don't know.
Yeah.
I like post, like, halfway through the series, Beth,
Yeah, I mean, Beth is definitely back to her, original series form in that she is a strong personality. And I don't think that Mark is, Mark's kind of just a mope, but I mean, it's the type of thing where her complaint with him is now almost a year old, what happened, with the letter thing. And if Mark hadn't had to testify about that, she would never know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, not that makes it right that she would never know, but I don't know.
Okay. So, let's see what happens next. At court, Sharon Bishop calls Ellie as a hostile witness, which I looked it up. It's just like a thing that it lets the jury know that whatever Ellie says, she's openly biased against Joe Miller.
Okay, well, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't think the jury needed to know that. I think they
Yeah.
got a pretty good idea. But Sharon grills Ellie for giving Lucy $1,000 or £1,000 on the day that Joe Miller was arrested, and as a bribe for evidence. Which it was, and this is why Abby slept with Ollie. That jerk.
Also, I'm kind of confused as to how, because that has to be about a year ago now, and why?
A bank statement from a year ago would be around the.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a really valid complaint, and the only possible thing I can think of is that Lucy's house is in such a disarray that bank statements from a year ago are still around, or
it's true,
or at the very least, not a bank statement, but just some proof that Ellie and her husband had a joint bank account, or I don't know. What matters is that Ellie got called out on it, and. That makes Sharon's day and, the defense's day. It's a really good bit. And Alec is also super unhappy about it. And he kind of grills her on, look, Miller, a bribe is a bribe. It doesn't matter if you word it as, I lent you money, no, give me information. And he doesn't sweeten things up. He knows this really hurts the case, and the trial can really go either way.
Yeah, I kind of love that conversation between them in the car, though, because they're just kind of giving it to each other, but it's not like they have any hard feelings about it.
Yeah, because she's, would it kill you to be reassuring? But she knows that this is just who he is, and he's not like, man, I hate you.
Of course.
You made a mistake.
Yeah, and I think that shows that they genuinely, how far their relationship has come, because in the beginning they hated each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you forget that
yeah.
This started with, I bought you some fish and chips. No, you didn't.
Yeah.
So where they're driving off to, though, is, Tess found Gary Thorpe, and Alec and Ellie go to talk to him, and he's really, really open about, oh yeah, Ricky Gillespie gave me a loan, because Lisa asked him to give me money. He's really open about, yeah, I was in love with Lisa, and I even stalked her. And he also goes on, the night the girls went missing, I was in the hospital because I tried to kill myself. So I just wanted to throw this out there because he's so open about everything. What do you think about Gary Thorpe?
So he's the son, he's like Gary Thorpe Jr., yes?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know what I think of. I think that it's interesting that he's one of the only upfront people.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously he's significant because we've brought him in now in the final act to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think that he killed the girls? No.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't think so either.
But I think that, obviously Thor Bagger Services will play a role next week.
Yeah, because we're really trying to figure out, it seems like his business might have just been used.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we can dive into ulterior motives soon, because we go right to Ricky, and like Alec and Ellie are asking about Thorpe, and Ricky pretends to know nothing about Gary Thorpe, and he suddenly remembers the loan that Lisa asked for. And all I can think about is why in the world Ricky would loan money to the short-term boyfriend of his niece.
Yeah, it's extremely weird.
And when they asked, like, did you know it was an incineration business? He was like, oh my God, do you think, he had something to do with it? And so, the other question is, like, then you expect us to think that you lent this guy money without knowing what the business was, right? So,
yeah,
I don't know. I'm just thinking my weird long shot theory is maybe that he lent the money, maybe specifically, especially because it's an incineration business, and maybe because he had a interest in incinerating something, but I don't know.
I don't know.
Or Ricky is just a dope, but it's possible.
It is very possible.
I mean, like, he turns into such a sweaty mess. Alec is like, how long have you had this photo of bluebells? Do you like bluebells? And he's like, they're all right, I guess. They're a flower, aren't they? So, I mean, I don't know. He's about to vomit. He really doesn't look well under pressure. And then they go, they leave his little trailer. And then they call the number in Claire's phone, and of course it's the number in Ricky's office. So I don't know what Alec and Ellie make of that Ricky was calling Claire.
Mm-hmm.
Just everything's so complicated.
Yeah.
And I really do think that we really know close to nothing about Sandbrook, and I don't think it can end in a satisfying way this Monday. But
we'll have to see.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I guess I don't mean that it can end in a satisfying way. I mean, like, we'll learn something, but it won't conclude Sandbrook for us.
Yeah. I guess my major concern, which I said last week, I'm pretty sure, is that there's too little time left to wrap it up, but there's also too much time, I feel like, to carry it over into next season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. So what happens next is that Lee confronts Claire on the beach in this super violent way. Just drags her by the hair and starts drowning her. Yeah. He's violently upset about potentially losing a baby to Claire's abortion, and furthermore by the fact that it was Alec who took her to the clinic. Claire throws some hits, back after Lee asks if he was the father. I noted that because infidelity is a really tight rope here.
Yes.
Because as soon as he's like, it was the baby mine, Claire becomes the one who's like, you are kidding me. Like, and she starts throwing the hits, so.
Well, I mean, I think infidelity is one of the overarching themes of this show.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. There's a startling amount of it, I guess, between Mark and what Joe was doing. Might as well have been.
Yeah,
so.
And Alec and Tess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, by the end of it, though, Lee is he's the one on the ground. He's like, I really don't want you near me. And I'm not on either of these people's teams right now, but I also don't know what to make of the situation.
You've abandoned Team Lee?
I don't know if I was ever on Team Lee in the way that it sounded like I was on Team Lee. But I was holding out hope that the guy who was on trial was going to turn out to be the good guy. But
I don't think so.
Yeah, no. So what happens next is that Ben and Jocelyn and Abby and Sharon are strategizing their final statements.
Mm-hmm.
And they are two very different moods. Because
Yeah.
Jocelyn's got this air of mourning, and Sharon and Abby are just straight up celebrating and making jokes at Oliver's expense. It's like, how'd you get that information? Oh, the boy who works for the local paper might have shagged him. So
I'd like those jokes so much better if I didn't hate the people making them.
So in the final statements, I think Jocelyn does a really good job stating the facts in a compelling order.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Miller was violent. He was secretly meeting Danny. His DNA was at the crime scene. He had Danny's phone, and he gave Danny £500. And he won't talk.
Yeah, which is super compelling.
Yeah. I think she drives home the points that, like, look, this, this man is nothing but suspicious in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Then Jocelyn and Sharon share cigarettes one last time, and Sharon just, she's like, her last bit's kind of weak, where she's like, my son can't get an appeal, so you and your justice system can go to hell. It's just kind of like,
Yeah, it's like, I still don't care about your son.
Yeah, we ran out of time to become sympathetic to your cause, because you're defending the bad guy.
Yeah.
And you yourself have not been extra interesting. It might have been more interesting this season if like the person defending Joe was really sympathetic and we felt bad about wanting them to lose, or I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if Sharon wasn't so easy to hate.
Yeah. Yeah, if she was more of a Jocelyn type.
Mm-hmm. And Sharon argues that she has a really compelling alternative to the night, and in her alternative, Mark kills Danny, and she goes, are you sure that's not what happened? Which, I thought was a really ridiculous thing to do. I've never heard of a court case where it's like, what if this happened? But she says, like, it's my job to represent the defendant, and it's my argument that it's impossible to be sure that he's guilty. And in the end, I think Sharon has a point there.
Yes.
It's really, this whole case, I don't know how you're gonna, be 100% sure that Joe did it.
Yeah, I think that honestly the most compelling part of the prosecution's case is the fact that Joe will not testify, or was not asked to testify by his lawyers.
Yeah.
Which, to me, raises so many red flags. Obviously we know what he's done, but I think for an outsider's perspective, how do you look at that and say, yeah, that man didn't do it?
Yeah.
But I also then think that really revealed some of the flaws in the prosecution's argument, because they didn't prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was Joe.
And I think, for me, if I were a jury member, the thing I'd be swinging towards the most as suspicious is that, like, how often the police screwed up.
Yeah.
Like, okay, there's a man beaten in custody by his wife who's also testifying against him. Like, it just, like, if I were a jury member, I'd be like, man, this doesn't sit right. Like, something funky happened here. And she bribed her sister.
Right. Well, like, think about if this was portrayed in the media today, people would probably be outraged at, like, police brutality and bribery and coercion.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be huge.
Yeah.
And I think that we would probably be distrustful of this prosecution.
Oh my God.
Which is terrible to think of, because we know in this case the prosecution is right.
Yeah, I was just thinking, though, was that if Grace Point ever got to a second season and they did this storyline, like, you could have Nancy Drew. Not Nancy Drew. Oh my God, wait. What's her name?
Nancy Grace.
Nancy Grace.
Nancy Drew. Do not drag Nancy Drew into this. She's a saint.
But you could have a Nancy Grace segment where, like, Nancy Grace is talking about the Grace Point murders, but but she would just be like, oh my god, like, this man did it. Meh, meh, meh.
Oh yeah, there's one show or movie that like did a Nancy Grace type of thing. Was that House of Cards?
I think so, maybe.
I can't remember.
I love when, like, I don't know if it happens often, but the idea of Nancy Grace being okay, like, yeah, I'll play myself for your movie. You got
Well, I mean,
deal.
she wasn't in it, but it was a Nancy Grace type character, and I think it was House of Cards, but I can't say for sure.
The House of Cards had a real life, like, Fox News person do an interview.
That's true, so maybe it wasn't House of Cards, but
Yeah.
I can't remember.
House of Cards gets a lot of real ass anchors to do things.
Yeah, well, people love House of Cards, even though, like, the people who love House of Cards should not love House of Cards. Like, politicians love it.
You know what was really weird? On my campus, the college Republicans put up flyers with Frank Underwood on it, and I'm like, the guy's a Democrat, guys. Did you did you miss that part? I mean, I'm not going to stir up trouble. The Sea Brigade is I don't know, red and blue. Look at the picture on your iPod. We're not taking sides, but House of Cards is damn fine, and if I had the time, I would. I don't know, a House of Cards podcast would be weird because all the episodes are up at once. So it would be like a marathon of a podcast, but yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm taking a break after this.
We're going on vacation.
Yeah. All right, it's back to where we're at. Let's see. Oh, so Judge Sonia is like, hey guys, you got to put aside all emotion and approach this analytically. And I'm like,
okay. I'm totally going to interrupt you. What you were saying?
Yeah.
To bring you something not relevant, but it wasn't House of Cards that I was thinking of. It's Gone Girl. Gone Girl has a Nancy Grace stand-in. There we go. Sorry. It just came to me.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, the jury gets this impossible task to approach this without emotion and analytically, in a case where nothing but emotions have been flying around the court. Then we see Chloe, who hasn't spoken in weeks.
Yeah.
She gets to say, like, how you doing, Dad? You know, you just have to rise above it. Proving once again she's the Latimer who's aged most.
Yep.
Giving out life advice to Dad.
Yeah, well, Chloe is easily the most mature Latimer.
Mm-hmm. Then Maggie and Jocelyn have dinner over, like, a cliff, like over the sea.
Yeah, it's like a picnic.
And Jocelyn confesses her love.
It's so cute.
But Maggie says the moment has passed, and that Jocelyn chose work, over, something that could have happened 15 years ago. But Jocelyn's like, I don't think the moment's passed. And then they kiss.
Yeah, it's so cute.
And I'm glad that turned out the way I was, theorizing it would.
Yeah.
And, some people saw it coming. Like, it wasn't, like, the biggest surprise. It just made me really happy.
Yeah, it was nice to see, something that we predicted come true.
Yeah, I think on the whole, like, Broadchurch Series 2 deserves a pat on the back for, like, female judge, female prosecutor, like, lots of just, like, female characters out and about. And not, like, doing, like, oh, like, this is such a lesbian story. It's just, no, it's a nice little old people love story.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even get a lot of old people love stories, I don't think.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's see. What happens next is Paul finds Claire sitting on the bench, which is the bench in Broadchurch for psychics, for grieving mothers, and other meetups.
The only bench in Broadchurch.
And Paul's concerned for Claire, and, he wants her to call the police, and I think he takes it really well when Claire says that the fight happened over an abortion. Like, yeah, he's still like, look, how about we find you a shelter? How about you call the police? How about, just like Paul just keeps trying. And, Paul just, he remains the bedrock of morality in this town. And he gives Claire advice as a recovering alcoholic about facing your demons when you've hit rock bottom and fighting back. Which, when he was giving that advice, I was like, oh my god. Like, I wonder if Paul's going to regret giving that advice, because I wonder what Claire's version of fighting back is.
That's true.
But we see it a little bit later in the episode, I think.
Off her rocker.
I don't know. Would you agree? Or
yeah.
Yeah, right? Okay. Yeah, it's on my next page of notes, so we'll talk about that soon. When Allie, my God. You know, you're the one listening to me.
Couple name, Allie.
Yeah. Is my voice totally nasally, or is it just me?
No, it's not so bad. Like, some certain words, but,
Yeah.
I mean, I probably wouldn't notice unless you had pointed it out. And I knew that you were sick.
Yeah. I mean, when I listen to myself on the headphones, all I can hear is how nasally I sound. And
I mean, people always sound worse to themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hope you, dear listener, don't find my voice disgusting this week. So anyways, when Ellie and Alec do a timeline of events, they come across a lie in Lee's story. When Alec asked Lee about Thorpe Agri-Services, he claimed to not know about it, but said it might have been a business that Kate did the books for. But Kate didn't know about Thorpe, and Ricky barely remembers the guy. So, you know, it turns out that Lee was the one who knew Thorpe Agri-Services, and he knew that, you know, Gary Thorpe would be a credible suspect because he knew Thorpe through Lisa, which means that Lee and Lisa were a thing, or at least more of a thing than he's admitted to Alec and Ellie. And it was kind of like, I understood the revelation at first, but I had to comb over all its implications, because it was like, oh, it's not such a big deal that Lee knew about Thorpe Agri-Services, and it's like, wait, why did he know?
Yeah.
And that's the point where it's like, oh, he has to have known Lee better than he's let on. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I also thought that was interesting too, because I guess it was last week when we got the flashback to Claire and Lisa says, I hate her, and she's looking at Kate and Lee, and like, so, you know, like, if she and Lee are a thing, like,
she could have been upset at Kate for flirting with Lee.
Yeah, although it would also be super weird to say that to Lee's wife, but
unless the three of them were a thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Sandberg is all sorts of messed up.
Except actually, my, you know, it's gonna come up real soon, but I'm starting to back down from the threesome idea or anything like that. And
yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not a thing.
My ideas are more centered in, like, perhaps Lee and Claire had a hard time conceiving a child, so they kind of just adopted Lisa in a way. Not legally, but they just took care of her.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty credible... I've seen that floating around, like, the subreddit and stuff, too.
Yeah, because, like, if Lee's really devastated about the abortion, it might have been because they've been trying for years to know success, and that's why they got so close to, you know, Pippa and Lisa. That's
true, but I also feel like that's also kind of like a recurring trope in TV literature. Like, oh my god, like, you know, you aborted my baby, like, you know, ultimate, like, you know,
you betrayed me.
Yeah, or like, yeah, you know, you're like, God, like, you know, you're taking away my masculinity. Like, I'm supposed to be, you know, I got you pregnant, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. You know, I totally agree. And that also fits, like, Lee's profile, I think, too.
Yeah.
So Alec asks Lee if he slept with Lisa, if he wanted to sleep with Lisa, and if Lisa turned him down, all of which Lee denies.
Yeah.
And that's
I just have a theory that, like, anytime Lee says something, Alex kind of, like, yes, the opposite.
Uh-huh.
Like, I think we talked about that before, like the memento tattoo, like, do not believe his lies.
Yeah, but, you know, this moment led me to think, like, what if the Lisa sanctuary theory is still possible?
It might be.
Especially when we get that conversation on the beach later.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. So, Alec is convinced that Lee is stained by death, and
I think it's a pretty accurate appraisal.
We get this flashback of Lee looking into the incinerator.
Yeah, which was, like, super hardcore. I, like, actually gasped. I was like, So, like, not that I necessarily think he was burning a body in there, but, like, obviously he was near an incinerator.
So, yeah, I was wondering if maybe all along there's something we've been missing. Like, what if Lee is stained by death, but not the death of either of the girls? Or, like, Lee disposed of something or someone via the incinerator for Lisa.
Potentially.
And Pippa saw that and was killed by accident, or was killed to keep Lisa's secret. But I don't know. I mean, I got the idea that Lisa and Pippa were pretty close, and that Lee wouldn't just kill Pippa to keep her quiet. Like, if Pippa was killed, it might have been accidental. I don't know. So
I don't know where you want to, if we're just like sharing theories as they come, or like, but something that I've seen floating around on the subreddit is this idea that Pippa's death was an accident and she fell off her trampoline, because we see her like bouncing on that stupid trampoline without a net all the time. But like, I also feel like I don't want that to happen, because like I don't understand why they would have to like cover that up necessarily, because like, God, if Pippa fell off the trampoline and died, like, you know, it's not Lisa's fault. I mean, I guess in the moment you panic. Like, God, I can't imagine what would happen if the kid I was babysitting, like, fell off a trampoline and died. Like, that's terrible. But I also don't know why your immediate reaction would be to dispose of the body in a river and run off to France.
I was just thinking, like, I had talked before on this podcast about how I saw Inherent Vice, and there's a character who is killed, and their death is framed as a trampoline accident. Seriously? Is that a spoiler? I haven't seen it yet. No, I mean, I didn't say which character. Okay. Whatever. Yeah. No, it's kind of funny. I just can't believe that those things wrapped around. Like, I didn't... Like, I think I saw Inherent Vice, like, the weekend where we did the first Sea Brigade together. Yeah, it's all come around. The answer is Joaquin Phoenix.
Joaquin Phoenix was the Sandberg murderer. Oh, of course. How could we have never seen it?
Let's see. What's up next? Oh, okay. The jury comes out, and they're asking whether Mark was ever questioned as a suspect, and what the view of the car park from the hut was. This is... I don't really care too much about the whole car park thing, but I think the jury being interested in Mark's arrest, I think they may be reassured of his innocence, since the police had him in custody. It's true. And unless they're taking the whole, you know, fuck the police stance, like, in that they screwed everything up. Yeah, but I also don't think, like, if Ellie and Alec could have pinned it on Mark, they would have. That's like, true, unless they're buying into the whole affair thing, and that, like, it needed to be Joe. Which I really hope that they're not. Like, I'd like to think that the jury can just take one look at Alec and Ellie and just be like... no. Be like, no. No. I don't ship them. No. Oh, man. Let's see. Well, maybe the jury has Tumblr. Sorry, we keep throwing Tumblr under the bus. I keep throwing Tumblr under the bus. That's alright. I mean, Tumblr doesn't deserve your protection. It'll be okay. Tumblr will get over it. Mm-hmm. So on the next day, Ben and Abby are making some small talk about their next cases. Oh, yes. Abby's got an armed robbery in Bristol. Yes. Ben's got sexual assault in Southwark. And Abby says... Southwark? Southwark, yes. Okay, well, delete the W. Southwark. Okay. There's a W there. Yeah. Don't even try to make sense of it. So Abby says, like, oh my God, Jocelyn's great and all, but she's way past her time, and we are so winning this fucking court case. And then Ben is just like, Abby, I wanted to say, and Abby looks so flirty right now, and Ben is just like, Abby, I think you're a truly horrible person. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Shit. Ben is my king. Ugh, yeah. He said everything I wanted to say. The Ben is loose. And in that moment, I swear we were Ben. I'm a fan. Go Ben. Ben won the rap battle. Ben dropped the mic. Mm-hmm. So what we see next is Beth and Ellie. They're like best friends again. and they're remembering the last time Latimers and Millers were having a good summer night, and the memory kind of gets sank because Ellie remembers that Joe was there, and that even the memories are spoiled.
Yeah, but like I feel like even too, I mean, I think we all have those memories of people where like we'd prefer for certain people not to be in those memories, but and like then then it gets sad, but I don't know, I really liked that whole Beth recounting the memory and being able to kind of confront her memories and process them and realize that there was, remember happiness.
Yeah, no, it was really cute because we don't really get a lot of moments of like, oh yeah, Danny was a sweet kid.
Yeah, and you can tell that she and Danny had a special relationship and that she really loved him. Mm-hmm. And it's sad because we don't ever get to see Danny interact with his parents. The only people we ever see Danny interact with is Joe, which is really sad.
And we, the other half of Danny's parenting is like, oh guys, you remember how like Mark hit him and didn't really talk to him, or so yeah, that's the upsetting part too. It's just like yeah. So in that little chat, Beth says, "I'm thinking of leaving Mark," and Ellie says, "Be careful, Beth. You think you're alone in that marriage, but you're not. It's nothing like being truly alone." I'm like, oh. Yeah.
But I think it's good advice.
It is, yeah, because I think there is something there worth working out. And like, good on Beth for giving Mark the chance. Like Mark, I think Mark can straighten up his act, but he needs to stop lying to himself too.
Yeah. Well, I think he's on the right track in, unfortunately, the fact that his testimony is kind of what created this rift right now, but it's also what's kind of making him a more self-aware person is unfortunate.
So we always do these transitions, but we go from, like talking about one marriage to another because we're talking about Mark and Beth, and then we go to Claire and Lee. Mm-hmm. Which also, props to Claire for making a domicile out of like what are those little booths are for like changing into bathing suits, right?
That's what I presume.
Yeah. So, Claire and Lee are considering it officially over, and Lee's thinking about going back to France, where nobody knows him, almost nobody, which was maybe a little bit too on the nose that it's going to turn out to be Lisa, but I was like holding out hope that Lisa is in France. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. Then Claire says, you shouldn't have hit me. Lee says, you're lucky I stopped there. And she's like, what the fuck was that? And Lee says, hey, it was just a joke. And then she goes, thank God you never became a father. You're so stupid. Yeah. And I think this is the moment that Claire decides to fight back instead of running away and sinking further with Lee. Because, this is the moment when I think Paul's advice about, you've hit rock bottom, what you need to do is turn around and fight back. And, I think in this moment, she was looking for an apology from Lee, but instead she got a joke. So she's like, fuck this. Yeah. She runs straight to the courthouse, gives the pendant to Alec, who's furious. Yeah, understandably so. Because he's like, he never exactly quite trusted Claire. But this girl he's been sheltering for years is the girl who sank his career. Mm-hmm. And it's just like... so we're left on this moment where Alec is really angry with Claire. We don't know what's going to happen to Lee. Claire's kind of gotten loose. And then the jury reaches a verdict. Mm-hmm. But it's not for us to find out this episode. Which upset a lot of people, including you. Including but not myself. Me. So here... You can go on and say your piece. I'll try to say my piece. Yeah. In defense of the episode, where I guess you will be the prosecution. To adopt the persona of Sharon Bishop. Honestly, I understood why they had to end it like that, because if you end... I know it's just one word or two words, but if you end the episode with that guilty or not guilty, people just explode. You end up creating a frenzy where you don't have an emotional resolution to this
verdict, where if it came halfway through an episode, say, you would get. If you end on that note, you invite yourself to a lot of criticism both ways. And, if he's guilty, then there's not really an emotional buildup for next episode. And if he's not guilty, it's just like, it's outrage. So I trust that we'll get the proper emotional resolution next week. So I wasn't upset.
I guess the thing for me that makes it weak is that, like, when we think about I think there's a value to thinking about it in terms of television, where on broadcast television, when you have to wait a week, this idea of, like, here's a little nugget to keep you waiting, the carrot on the stick kind of thing. Like, you want to know what the verdict is? Tune in, next week. But there's the part of me that's like, if I were really tired, like I had just stayed up to 4 a.m. to watch Broadchurch Series 2 on Netflix, and episode 7 ended on this cliffhanger, I'd be like, oh shit. Like if I really want to know the answer, I'll just watch the first minute of episode 8 and then close Netflix and go to bed maybe. Like, there's something frustrating to me about, like, it's not half over. It's just it just doesn't feel wholly. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Tanisha uses the word dickish to describe it. A part of me thinks that's right. Maybe it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a dickish thing.
Well, I think we're being taunted a little bit. But I don't necessarily. I didn't have a problem with it. I was kind of just like, yeah, well, that happened.
Yeah, I don't know. In the end, my feeling is, like, I care, obviously, that, how this episode, what the verdict is, but, like, I don't know. I don't want to spend too much time talking about what it is going to be, because I feel like we don't have any context clues for what the jury's going to decide, because we don't really know the jury.
True. That's true.
I think every prediction about whether Joe will be found guilty or not guilty, like every decision or every prediction, is based in schools of writing story. Here are the story reasons why not guilty would be interesting. Here are the story reasons why guilty is what the viewer wants and would be, like, thematically right. But I feel like we can't really, and, like, I think, like, that's all we can do. I don't know if we can say, like, who put on the better court case, because it's like we don't know the jury members or what happened in that discussion room. Right. So,
although I know personally, for me, I think that seeing all of the arguments laid out at the end like that, I felt like Jocelyn maybe didn't do her job to the extent that she should have. Well, I don't know if there was anything else for her to do, honestly, because there wasn't any evidence other than Joe's confession, really.
And the people of Broadchurch kind of kept fucking up.
Yeah.
In the handling of Joe Miller, and then the not telling Jocelyn about everything they need to know.
Yeah, and I don't think that she mishandled anything. She did the best with what she was given, but I don't know if it was enough.
I'm also, like, really disappointed to not see Joe Miller have to testify.
Yeah.
Because, like, looking at season 1, or at the beginning of this season, we're trying to lay out how this case would go.
Yeah, and I think we figured that Joe's testimony would have to be episode 7 or 8.
Really, like, this last, but, like...
Right, like in a video game, that would be, like, the final boss battle,
Yeah, but it's not happening. It's okay. It's not going to end.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting, though, to not go that route. But you know what? Honestly, that's probably more realistic, because, like, why would Sharon call Joe? He's a mess. It would be dramatically great and probably sink their case, but she knows that she's not going to do that.
Yeah, and I guess I don't know law that well at all, but I guess the defendant never has, like, in American courts, is that the case? Like, would Casey Anthony never have to, go on trial or speak if she didn't, like, did she speak?
I don't know. I didn't watch any of that.
Okay. Well, you know what? I feel like this is going to be, like, the first Brigade episode that comes in under an hour.
Yeah.
For a while, and I think it's because the end of this episode, it doesn't leave much to talk about because it's a kind of a coin flip. And
yeah. Well, we also didn't do any news stuff.
Yeah. We didn't do any news, and I'm sick, and...
yeah.
But, hey, you know what? Take that... We read email at the top of the show because we care about email. And
yeah, we were so excited.
And with about... So, each week we peak higher and higher with the number of downloads, and it's like... Hey, listener, like, next episode is going to be the last time to write in a Sea Brigade email and
please do it
and get it read on the air. So, and if next episode gives us a lot to talk about, it could be a super long episode.
That's true.
Sea Brigade Podcast at gmail.com is where you should be writing your emails. We have gotten other emails from listeners, but they were doing things like letting us know how to get the ebooks and not so much like coming in with like theories and discussions. They were just little helpful hints and stuff like that.
That's so nice.
Yeah, so Sea Brigade Podcast at gmail.com. I love all you guys. You get that. Don't follow us on Twitter. It's a shit account. It's used for spam so that people who search the Broadchurch hashtag will see that there's a podcast. But yeah, I don't know. I had a really good time doing this, and I can't wait to cover the finale for you guys. Hopefully I'll be in better health. And I think for me, that will just about do it for this episode of the Sea Brigade.
Yeah.
As always, thanks to Kevin MacLeod for Beach Party and Oliver Arnolds for So Close. And I don't know, any closing words, Emily? Or...
I guess just stay tuned for next week.
Okay. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.